Welcome to today's CPG Masterclass series webinar with Alastair Spink on building a community of female golfers. Welcome all to today's webinar. I hope you enjoy it. My name is Tom Bentley. I'm the Communications and Event Manager for the Confederation of Professional Golf, and I'd like to welcome you all. Just before I pass you on to Alastair and we get started, as always, just make sure your microphones are muted and you can keep your screens on. I know some of you do, which is good, so we can see who's there. And as always, we will be recording it and uploading it onto the hub page afterwards. We've already got a list of about 15, 16, 17 of them on there from previous ones, so you can go and view those. And then this one will be uploaded afterwards as well. So if you miss anything, you can catch it on there. We'll also do a Q&A, as always, again. So if you have any questions for Alastair, just post them in the chat option in the bottom of your screens, and I'll allocate a bit of time afterwards and go through as many as we can in the allotted time. So without further ado, I'll pass you straight on to Alastair, who's leading the love.golf program, and he's going to be focusing on building a community of female golfers. So Alastair, over to you.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Tom. Let me just set up my share. Okay, hopefully you've now got my first slide there.
Yeah.
I was just saying to Tom just before we get underway, my next oaring and hammering that you hear, I can only apologise now. But I've got, hence my mood lighting, I've got the blind down, the windows closed, so hopefully we won't be interrupted. But firstly, thank you very much to CPG for inviting me to do this. I really look forward to it. I think you guys have done an amazing job so far. Seized that opportunity, and I think with this lockdown, lots of great ideas and opportunities have come out of it. So really, congratulations to you all for setting it up. So I think it's fantastic. With the presentation today, as the slide says, really, we're going to talk about building a community of female golfers, and then really just sort of looking at turning the research that we've done into coaching practice. So I'm just going to start just with a little bit about me. I'm based in the UK, a fellow of the PGA, head coach to love.golf, and we're going to pick up on that a little bit later and talk you through that. I completed a master's in sports coaching a couple of years ago at Birmingham, with a focus on gender and female participation, and now currently just coming to the end of my first year as a PhD researcher, still at Birmingham and still focused upon female participation, and we'll draw on that within this presentation. Objectives for today. Not to really start throwing lots of data at you, but really kind of just telling you a story, trying to make it interesting, trying to weave the research into coaching practice so that I hopefully contextualizes it to your coaching practice, and then really just get you to reflect upon your coaching practice, but maybe also just challenge your coaching practice as well, particularly when it comes to coaching women and girls. And then finally, really just to kind of introduce you to the concept of the gender lens, and just talk you through some of the research around that, and ways that you will be able to implement that into your venues. So just to get underway, really, as I say, we just want to kind of tell you the story, and for me, how it all started. So I'm based in the UK. I'm based here. I'm actually based there, and I'm right next to the sea as well. So I'm right on the East Coast. Coached for 30 plus years in a fairly dictatorial and traditional way. I grew up at a golf club that was very traditional. When I was a junior member there, I could play at weekends and women couldn't. They couldn't play until after midday. And that was how it was. I didn't question it. As a junior growing up in the golf club, it's just how it was. But hopefully, as you'll see, how my views have changed quite dramatically now. My focus of getting into female participation really started in about 2011. I'm based at a golf club just down the road from where I live, called Fynn Valley. It's very open, proprietary owned. It's got an 18-hole, it's got a par 3, and a fairly basic but functional range. And I was also doing some work from England Golf at the time, and was very much aware of the disparity between the number of men and women playing golf. And yet I was seeing quite a lot of women coming to the range. So I just started to study it in a little bit more detail. And what I tended to see was that, say, a lot of women would come to the range. It tended to be their partner, so whether that was husband, granddad, dad, whatever that relationship was, tended to be him that played. And so they would often come to the range, he would start hitting shots, and she would probably watch. And at some point during that, she would ask if she could have a go. And that was the moment that I noticed a lot of consistent things happening. And number one was that the man, the guy that was hitting shots all over the place, turned himself into a tour coach. And all of a sudden, he wanted to give all of the information he knew, or thought he knew, to this poor person. And rather than just celebrating the fact that she wanted to have a go, he just needed to tell her stuff. He couldn't help himself. And I just saw that being repeated so often. And of course, as we know, if you keep telling people what to do, the outcome is generally not going to be very positive. And so this poor person tended to be hit with this information. We all know what that information would be. You know, keep your head down, left arm straight, rotate your shoulders, etc., etc. And this whole experience tended to result in a very negative experience for the poor person. The club was handed back, and she concluded that golf, no, I'm going to leave that. It's not for me. I haven't got the time. It's really difficult. Forget it. And as I saw that being played out a few times, two things that occurred to me really. Number one, that's not how I fell in love with golf. I fell in love with golf with playing golf. This poor person never even got off the range. She was just stuck in a bay. And number two, reflecting upon my coaching, that also, it wasn't far off how I coached. Very dictatorially. Here's a golf club. This is how you stand. This is how you grip it. This is where you put your feet. Okay, I hopefully did it in a much more professional way. But the philosophy behind it was very much, I had all the information and this person needed to be told what to do. And that did concern me considerably. So I decided to do something about it. So I created a project, and the project was to get a group of women that would come along, take part in a coaching program. We started marketing it over social media. As you will see by the poster, there is no golfer on there, purposely so, because I didn't want to attract golfers. I wanted to attract real women, women that wore jeans and trainers. I didn't want to attract a stereotypical looking female golfer, which you see on so many posters. So we put it out on social media. We had 48 women sign up inside 2 weeks. And we offered them 8 hours of coaching. We offered them access to the golf course for the duration of the project. And in return, all I wanted them to do was to complete a coaching journal. And I wanted them to tell me about their lives. And I wanted them to do it in a really comfortable environment. So the journals were handed in at the end of the project. Some of them wrote them, some of them did them on a laptop, but they handed them in anonymously, say at the end of the project. And what the women wrote in the journals was a world that I had absolutely no idea about. It was a world where These women were having to negotiate their sport activity outside of their social world. Now, for me, and for my 3 boys that I have, we were able to negotiate our golf within our social world. But that's not what the women wrote about. They wrote about when they went to the range or went to play, men kept telling them what to do. They kept giving them unsolicited advice. And to cut a long story short, the journals, a lot of them were 10, 15, 20 pages long. They set me on this journey. As I say, they spoke about a world that, as a man, I had no idea existed. So I ended up taking all of the journals and got into the world of academia, and that's where I've spent a lot of my time, and I've focused on these 4 areas really. And I will pick up on those maybe in the questions a little bit later. But this men v women, sport versus social conflict, I look at the power of the media and how it influences how we think. And then say the focus has been very much on women, and I did my master's with a group of girls as well. And so I'm quite happy to pick this up in the questions, but my overall belief is this is how the golf industry wants and views women. Whereas in reality, this is what the real world looks like. And I think if we want to create impact and connection and change, then we've got to be realistic about our marketplace and have an offer that meets that marketplace. This is off Sims, and actually where we are in the world at the moment, it's reality. There's a whole bunch of different people out there. Gender is not binary anymore. It's not just male and female. It's not. But we as golf tend to very much still segregate, and lots of different types. I say they're just my opinions from the research, and I'm really happy to pick those up within the questions as well. Just to give you some different context in golf to bring this all together, just on the current landscape really, I've just chosen 4 countries to kind of show you where the proportion of golfers sit, if you're interested to get more women and girls playing golf. So I've chosen the 4 countries: Germany, the Netherlands, Sweden and the UK. And this is just a chart that shows you the composition of female members as a percentage. So if we put some numbers to that, for instance, so in Germany, 34% of registered golfers are female. 31 in the Netherlands, you can read that, 25 in Sweden, and I am embarrassed to say 14% in the UK. And those numbers haven't really changed over the last 10 plus years. They've kind of sat round about there. Traditional golfing countries, that's kind of whereabouts they sit. Germany's just dropped a little bit over the last couple of years. The Netherlands has just increased a little bit. So I think when you look at that, I think there's 2 things that would jump out to me. Number 1 is that's not good enough. Those numbers should be a lot higher. And I'll be interested again, hopefully we can pick up on the questions why people believe that no country has got 50%. Be interested to pick up on that. But secondly, and much more positively, there's a real opportunity here, because if we think, well, we could get it to 50%, then each country has a massive opportunity to really increase their participation numbers with regards to women, and these are adults. These numbers, these don't include girls. These are adults. So I just want to show you what the research would say about it. But what I just want you to hold the thought really is that the numbers haven't particularly changed. Okay, they've stayed round about that number. When you look at the research, there's not much out there. I have to be honest, there's not a huge amount on women's participation. Okay, because mainly all the research is on elite and it's on men. So there's not so much, but one key piece of work, I'm happy to send this out afterwards. Just look at the date though, 2006. Okay, it was a study that was done in the US. And it was a relatively big study, hence why I've chosen it. And it involved women that played golf, women that had given up, but it also involved coaches, both male and female. So I think it's a good piece of research that brings together key players within the industry. And what the research said, obviously you can read it on the screen, was that despite all of the initiatives to get more women to take up golf, they leave as quickly as they start. And they spoke about this churning effect. And the churning effect was that, as that quote says, you're getting them in one end, but they're not sticking. So the numbers aren't changing. But there's loads of initiatives out there, but they just don't change. And so I think it's really important to think about that when you then look at the numbers that I displayed previously, and also bearing in mind this is 2006. So are we saying in 14 years nothing has changed? We'll come back to it. What the study showed, and again, I don't like to read off the screen, so I'm just going to pick out a couple of things. They divided it into 3 areas. The women said the game is too difficult, so much emphasis on skill, and men keep telling them what to do. There it is again. Clubs aren't welcoming. Poor attitude from male and female members, particularly female members, existing female members. And number 3, and I don't think there's any surprises really in number 3, is, it takes a lot of time. Yes, we know. But there is an interesting one, which I think was that golf clubs, and I think they still do today, still have this 18-hole competition mentality. I think it's changing, but I think it's still there. So I think when you bring all of that information together, so I would say the journals, the academic research, the numbers, then I think this is where we have this call to action, and love.golf uses the hashtag. I think it's even more appropriate now because the world has changed. Group coaching may never look the same again. So it is a chance to be different. Daring you to be different, daring coaches to be different. And so again, we'll touch on that within love.golf in a moment. But it's at this point where I really think that, say, the call for action for me is we need an offer that meets the needs and wants of modern women and modern culture. And we need to look at our venues and the way that we coach. I think there's a number of ways that we can do that. But I think a key one here is something that I referred to as one of the objectives, is to really start looking at this, the gender lens. If you were on Ian Peake's webinars, he would have spoken about how we view the world. So what lens we view the world at. I can't see everybody here on the screen at the moment, but the people that I can see are all male. We will view the world through a male lens. We will. It's what we do. And I think with golf, and now I know how ironic this sounds when I'm giving this presentation, but the golf industry is littered with men thinking they know best for women. We don't. We don't know what it's like to walk into the golf club as a female. We have no idea. And even more so, we don't know what it's like to walk into the golf club as someone that's not very good at golf. Because we're really good. We conform to everything that golf is set up for. And so I think we've really got to change that. And for me, the gender lens started when I read the journals and the life stories of the women. So I think it's something to consider, not necessarily now, but as you hopefully reflect on the presentation, I would suggest, if you are looking to get more women playing golf and retaining more women at your venues, you need to take a really good look at your golf club. You need to really consider how neutral, gender-wise, your golf club is. You say it's welcome to all, you say it's welcome to women. Is it? Or is it just a sign that says family friendly, come on in? And then I think I would strongly suggest that you take some time just to think of, are there any day-to-day practices that could be having a really negative effect for women and girls? And again, I'm happy to pick these up in the questions and give you some examples. But I just want to move on to how we've taken the research and what we've done with it. And this is where love.golf was formed. So love.golf is a actually, I'll give you the slide. It's a call to action. It's looking at all of the research. It's looking at all of the views from what the women have told us through the journals and the insight, and trying to put something together that meets those needs. It dares to be different. It encourages the coaches to break away from the shackles of traditional coaching and to coach in a much more contextualized way. We want our coaches to think outside the box. We want them to be creative. We want them to come up with the most amazing ideas so that women have the best experiences when they come to golf clubs. But we will base it all upon the research. We'll use imagery that's very different to what you may see normally associated with female participation. So you won't see any visors, and I'll leave the rest. We just don't want it to be stereotypical imagery. So it's much more empowering, our message. Some of our terminology, again, reflects that in being more empowering. It's more about self-discovery, achieving success, rather than just come along and see if you like it. It's designed specifically for women. We see a lot of golf initiatives in the industry that are, as I say, designed by men for men, and then we think they'll be okay for women. This is designed top to bottom through research and customer insight for women. And the journals and the information, they have a sense of ownership. Pretty much the majority of the coaching will take place out on the golf course. We won't be standing on the range. We're building a community of golfers, so love.golfers, but equally we're building a community of love.golf coaches, which is the other aspect to the project, is that we can have this empowering group of women, but equally we want a like-minded and empowering group of coaches that help and work together and support each other and share ideas with each other to drive this forward. Because one initiative, one golf club, one coach can't create impact, can't create scale. It's got to be a group coming together. So just looking at the coaching, we want coaches to learn, we want love.golfers to learn from their coach, of course, but we also encourage them to learn from from other students. So lots of group discussion. The coach will facilitate rather than standing there saying, do this, do that, do this. Give you a whole bunch of journals that women will say, that is just boring, just shut up, let us go and play. We will contextualize it through playing. And we always encourage and invite the women to take part in love.golf projects by completing those journals. So we still want that insight coming back all of the time to make sure that we are well, relevant really, and still meeting their needs. But again, it's all what the research is telling us. Just going to move through. I'm going to show you just a quick video because I think it just explains it a little bit better, and I'm hoping this is going to work. So. Here's that. So there was 2 days, as you probably saw, rolled into one there. But just to give you an idea of what a project would look like. So that's a coaching project. Would you known that there was coaches there? Perhaps not, but they were there. They were within the group, but they're not dictatorially positioned, telling you what to do. So they're facilitators within that group. So there were 2 or 3 coaches in each of those. But again, as you can hopefully see just from that quick example, really, the imagery, the music, the activity doesn't look like a traditional golf lesson, and certainly not what is currently being directed to as a default women's project. Just before we get onto the questions, I just want to just touch on the theory, if I may, because there is a methodology that sits behind it. So there's 2 pillars to the coaching. One is social constructivism, and if you haven't come across that before, there's no reason why you should have done, because it sits in the academic world. But what it basically does is it grounds the coaching in theory, and it's based upon a Russian psychologist called Vygotsky, and it's used in education. And he said that you can only learn so much. If one person tells a group what to do, actually that's not even learning, it's just telling them what to do. If you involve other members of the group and the environment, i.e. out on a golf course, and everyone gets involved, now that's learning. And then that level of learning is expanded massively. And if you think about that, you think, yeah, of course, that must be right. Someone like I'm doing now, just telling you what to do, telling you information, that's not learning. It's just telling you information. You've got to feel it and get part of it and chat it through together. That's when it becomes learning. So he speaks about the zone of proximal development, and basically it's this massively increased learning field when everyone gets involved in kicking around ideas together. So as you see in my second point, the coach facilitates an ongoing conversation rather than standing there telling them what to do. Everyone learns from each other, and yes, it's going to be noisy and it may be disorganized, and that's brilliant, because again, that's what true learning looks like. And then secondly, something that you certainly probably have come across, teaching games for understanding, is the second pillar, and that's underpinned by social constructivism theory. But the key one really is the third one down, this one here, where the game or the task is placed ahead of the skill. So in other words, you're asking someone to try something first and see how they get on before giving them the skill. So I go back to my early observations when I said, the guy hands the club and immediately tells someone what to do, rather than just saying, have a go. And if they hit it great, don't say anything. If they need skill, add it. So it's just rotating that around. So the game comes first, the skill comes after. Just brought that just all together just in one slide, which is a really for the coaches that are on this call, really. There's no doubt if you're a love.golf coach, the coaching is less predictable and you'll definitely be out of your comfort zone. Strict lesson plans don't exist here. You never know what's going to happen next. But I would argue that's what makes you a really good coach, is being able to have that flexibility and creativity. And you want to give the women in your project the best possible experience. So when they drive home, it's like, wow, that was amazing. I cannot wait to get back. It's not about you. It's not about you as a coach. It's all about the end user. It is still coaching. Facilitating is coaching. It's not a weakness. But just the final caveat really is that it's not just a free-for-all. You're not just sending this group out and telling them to get on with it. You're still there. You still have a duty to coach. You're just doing it in a different way. There's just some headlines really in this presentation. So I'm really happy to speak more about the research, the project, the numbers, anything. I'm happy to expand upon it, but I don't want to take up any more time. For more information, if you don't ask any questions or you think later, a couple of places to go to. Love.golf is a project that's delivered by myself and supported by Syngenta. If you would like to know more, head over to these links and you can find lots more about their initiatives. Syngenta is a global bioscience agricultural company, and part of their remit and their social responsibility and thought leadership projects is to get more female participation, not just in actually playing golf, but across the whole industry, looking at the board, looking at the workforce. Again, it's a call to action and something that golf has to address. You've got to have more women involved in golf for it to be successful. If less than 10% of our workforce is female, it's going to be really difficult. We've got to try and address not just the coaching and participation, but all areas. If you'd like to know more about love.golf, we have a website and we're across all social media channels. And if you have any questions for myself now or maybe later, then I'm very happy to talk about it and to go into more detail on any part of that. So any of that contact information, whether it's phone, email, Twitter, however, I'm very happy to support and give any advice I possibly can.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that,
No
Alastair.
worries.
I've enjoyed that. Yeah, just as he said, if you've got any questions for him, do post them in the chat now, and I'll spend a bit of time asking some to him. Can I just ask one from from what I've just drawn from that, Alastair, if that's okay?
Of course, yeah.
You mentioned a bit earlier on about the roles of sort of husbands, granddads, and stuff taking over, and that causing dropouts, etc. Just wondering if what role does the PGA Pro play in that? Is there a flaw in the way PGA Pros are not necessarily educated, but more the way they run their businesses, etc., in causing that? And is love.golf in effect throwing that out of the window and trying to change the perception of what a golf coach is to women? Sorry, that's a long question.
That is, yeah. It's a good question. Well, I think it's definitely not throwing it out the window, because to be able to coach in a facilitator role, you've got to have incredibly good skills and knowledge to be able to do that. So I think it's you still have to have fundamentals of coaching without a doubt, because that's your grounding. That's what everything is built upon. It's then taking all of that technical knowledge and information, and then maneuvering it around for when you deliver it. So I think coaches are, they still head towards a technical model very quickly. And so we have I'll give you an example. We have a number of coaches. We've got 30 plus coaches in the UK. A lot of the younger coaches will say, well, I've got to give the information to the student because I need them to know that I know. And that's quite a challenge, I think, for a new coach, whoever you're teaching, whether it's a male or female group. But of course, the research, and we know from the journals, is that generally they don't care. They just want to have a really good time.
Yeah.
They already know that you know what you know, because otherwise you wouldn't be doing what you're doing. So, what comes up in a lot of our research is that, obviously this is female orientated through love.golf, is that the women will say, just need the coach to shut up. Just let me get on with it. If I need help, I know you are there, I will ask. Otherwise, just back off. And I think that's a skill set that coaches need to learn and be more aware of, definitely. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Mark's made a point, sort of, it goes back to the graph with the Germany, Netherlands, Sweden, UK. Is there any particular reason why there's some big differences in females playing more so in Germany than what there is in the
UK? I've presented in all of these countries, so I've asked that question. It's a really difficult one to pinpoint. I think certainly the environment makes a difference. Golfing, I mean, if you look at the UK, I don't like to keep looking at the UK numbers. It is so traditional. It was not geared for families. It was not, it was, and maybe still is in a lot of cases, still a game designed for men to play. And so it's a slow changing machine. When I've presented in Germany, for me the culture is completely different, not just in golf, but just national culture is much more family orientated. I was in the Netherlands earlier this year and saw exactly the same there as well. There's not the divide. There's a lot of segregation still in traditional golf clubs that there isn't necessarily in some of the newer ones. So I think it is a combination of quite a lot of things that can probably just be put into culture as the umbrella that kind of everything sits within, really. The only thing I would add is that some of these numbers, so Switzerland, Austria, and Germany have good numbers, but their age demographic, when you dig into those numbers, is quite high. And so Germany dropped 2%, I think, in the last year or so. So I do wonder, though, whether some of these countries now may just drop back down. The Netherlands is one that's going up. So Germany's dropped, Sweden's dropped, UK stayed the same, US has dropped, Australia's dropped, Spain's dropped or stayed about the same. So there may be something to do with age in there as well.
There's the principle of age catching up with the numbers as well at the same time. Yeah, that's interesting.
I think so. Yeah, I think some of the countries might experience what the UK has experienced. Maybe.
What just Hanny makes a key point in that you've got this program set up for women to be able to do and that sort of stuff. But how do you actually go about targeting them? Is there a particular demographic you're always looking for within women? Do you target, I don't know, schools or some particular key part of society?
Yeah, just go back to I'll go back to that one to start with, really. I think just by the nature of our imagery, we are looking to target a more dynamic, younger corporate market. I used to think it was age. I used to think, and I used to say that, we're definitely looking for younger women. But over the years of delivering love.golf and there's been over 1,000 women involved, I would say actually that's not right. No, it's actually a shared mindset. So the women we are looking for and attracting and putting all of our marketing resources to share a mindset, which is a modern mindset really, is that, well, you know, we want to play on a Saturday. Who's going to stop us? We want to do this. We want to be treated in golf as we are in the workplace. So they share that mindset. So we've had, well, personally, I have had women in a group that have been in their 70s, but they've still got a sparkle in their eye. They've got that mindset for like, right, get out of my way. We're going to go and play. And it's that shared mindset. But the imagery, I think, you know, when you look at that and then maybe the terminology here, you can see it's very much directed at women, encouraging and empowering them to have a go.
Yeah, because the key point I sort of noticed straight away with that is it throws the stereotypes out of the way. Just for example, the colour. There's no pink or purple in there, etc. They're key points of the communications, I think, from that.
Yeah, I've spoken at length, and I can't see Aston, but I suspect he's probably rolling his eyes at the moment you said pink, because you know, it's just the default. It's where the industry goes. It's like, right, let's create a poster. I'm not going to get on one, Aston, don't worry. Let's create a poster. Oh, it's for women, right? Let's make it pink. Or let's put in, we can have cake afterwards. Let's do all of that, and they'll be happy. Well, I don't see that for men. I don't see, oh, don't worry about it. You know, you can have something to eat afterwards. I don't see it. So, you know, it's all about the skill. These women want to be really good. You need to be focusing on the skill, not solely on the social side of golf. Yes, I know it's important, but I do think, you know, the golf industry defaults to pink. Yeah.
No, it wasn't more from me thinking that was the right way. I was more making the point. So Aston won't be disappointed, isn't it? Just sort of wondering then, say for example, you mentioned earlier about touring your golf club and things. What are the key standout things in a golf club that are barriers to women wanting to feel welcome? From your experience?
Well, I'd go back when I did my master's. That was with a group of girls telling me how they grew up in a golf club. The number one for them was that, and we see this within the journals as well, is that when somebody new, so female, comes to the golf club, maybe takes lessons, they're immediately directed towards joining the women who probably play during the week. To get a handicap, to join the competitions. It's like, well, this is why you've joined. They're having to conform to the way that golf is, but that's not what they're looking for. So I see that mismatch. I see it around so definitely with accessibility to the golf course. I think the girls also spoke a lot about the teeing ground. Where they were saying, you know, well, we're immediately directed towards the front tees, but we hit it as far as the boys. And yet the boys are told when they're 12 or 13, right, you're big, strong boys, you move now back to the men's tee because you're men. But girls, you still play off the reds. And the girls spoke about, it's the worst thing ever, because they were, you know, they were good players. They were as good as the boys, but they were, again, having to conform to that tradition of, well, that's where you play from. And so it's areas like that, really. Just looking at those, you know, quite obvious when you look at them. And I know that, you know, a lot of clubs, particularly when it comes to the teeing ground, are now looking at that. And the teeing ground is now obviously much more on ability and skill level rather than gender. But you know, that would be a couple of obvious ones, really, that that I think from a venue point of view, from a coaching point of view, I think as we just spoke about, really, this the lack of focus on skill and the huge amount of focus on social for women. It's important, of course, and it's important more so for some women than others. But you just need an offer. You just need different offers for women. Not everyone is going to love love.golf. Some women want a traditional, more on the range offer, but just have a whole bunch for everybody, that when you walk into that golf club, you just can choose off the shelf what you want.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree. Just on that tee thing, he's sort of insinuating a little bit like a long leaf system style, instead of red, yellow, white, basing it on how far you hit the ball. Yeah. Okay. No, I was just sure I was clear on that. Emma makes a point. Do you find that women feel more comfortable to come with a friend or family member, a sort of like safety net, rather than on their own? I guess in the context of a taster session.
Yes. Sorry, I was just trying to think of an example. I was trying to. Yeah, I think so. Again, I think it depends on the woman that's coming along, really. I mean, most of my love.golf groups tend to be individual women that have come along, to be honest. But yeah, I think you've still got to be like you would do with any project, whoever you're coaching. You want it to be the most comfortable environment you can, and if someone feels happier coming with somebody else, then yes.
Okay.
I wouldn't say it was a definite. In fact, I'm kind of thinking about that now. The majority of the women that would come to my love.golf sessions would come by themselves.
Okay. So there's definitely not particularly a trend. But it's an occurrence. What does some of the principles that you've mentioned today? How much does that translate into girls rather than women? Is there actually? Because I'm just thinking, and I've seen some driving ranges. You've got dads bringing kids to the range. Is that another? Is it a similar scenario with younger girls?
Oh yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think and I know I'm a bloke saying this, but men are just. Well, don't want to swear on a recording, but they just, I think mansplaining is now actually in the dictionary, which is men feeling that they have to explain to women and girls how things work. I mean, just,
And that comes down to just fundamental societal issues rather than actually just golf itself as well, isn't it?
Oh, I think, it's definitely, it's not just golf, it's definitely cultural, and it's just how it's been for so long. People believe that is the way that people learn. But the research would suggest otherwise, and I just think it's you see it seeing it a lot in football, of course, as well, where parents are being told not to say anything in a football match because again it tends to be the dad. They can't help themselves. They're not doing it to out of spite, of course. They're doing it the best way that they can. But I think it's just it's just having an opportunity to look at it a different way. And you see it more in junior coaching, I think, as well, that that teaching gains for understanding, putting the task ahead of the skill. You see that much more in junior coaching, which is fantastic. But there seems to be somewhere along the line that when you reach a certain age, we seem to assume that we learn in a different way.
Yeah.
And we now need to be told what to do, whereas when we were 9 or 10, we were allowed to have a go. And then when we're 29 or 30, we seem to be needing to be told what to do.
Yeah. Which is interesting. That's interesting. Just to finish off then, just in case any coaches that are on this today want to get in touch and find out a bit more about the love.golf program, if your contact details are on one of the slides, I think.
Yeah, I'll just put that back there.
There we go. So if you do want to get in touch with Alastair, if you have any other questions from it today, I'm sure you'll be okay in dropping an email. And if you want to find out a bit more about what Alastair's doing with the work with the love.golf program, then you can.
Absolutely. Yeah. We're running a number of pilots, Spain, Canada, Sweden, Netherlands. So yeah, just the more input we can get and the more conversations we can have, the stronger we will become.
Okay, there you go. So yeah, thank you to everybody for attending. I hope you did enjoy it, found it insightful, learned something a bit different. It's a different perception on the way we view coaching, and particularly female coaching. So I hope you enjoyed it and took something away from it. And also thank you to you, Alastair, as well, for giving up your time.
No, it's a pleasure. And my neighbour has stopped on your shed as well. So that was.
Say, well done for persevering through the half.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. It was great.
Great. Just a final one. We've got some more webinars next week. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we've got a try series of junior coaching with some guys from the PGA of Holland, which will be really good. And on Tuesday, we've got a Golf Pride regripping education seminar, a webinar with Connor Dillon as well, which would be awesome. So if you want to register for those, go straight onto the Masterclass series hub page afterwards. So just finally, just finish off again just by saying thank you to you all, and thank you to you, Alastair. And I hope you all have a fantastic afternoon and evening today.
Well, thank you very much, guys.